Right. So, oh, come on.
Who's Lenovo tab 410?
It's Beryl.
That's Beryl Walmer.
Oh, well, Beryl's muted as
That's
well
all right.
as
I mean,
invisible.
doesn't have to be muted.
Hi, Beryl.
Yes.
Can't see you, but hello.
Hi, Beryl.
Right.
Hello.
Can everyone-
I had muted because in case I make a noise while I'm here.
Okay.
Well, you can. We don't mind if you make a noise.
We don't
Okay.
mind noise.
Thank you.
We're quite happy with noise.
Okay. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Great. Fantastic.
Yes.
Okay, start. Off we go. Right. So, Iris. Oh, one sec.
Can't hear you.
Who can't hear who?
I hear you.
I think we can all hear each other now.
All right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you
Okay.
now. I can hear you now.
Yep.
Okay. I'll speak up. I'm on the headset. You know what? Let me do this. One second. Just give me a moment. I'll do a better. See if this is better.
It was more that it got distorted. It wasn't your.
1 second. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear. Everybody else hears. Oh. Oh.
Is that better or worse?
Hello.
It's
Really
about the
worse.
same.
Right, forget that. That didn't work at all. No, that didn't work at all. Okay. Right, back to this.
Okay.
Okay. Ah, I'm back to this. Okay, never mind. Right, Iris, off you go.
Okay. The greater part of the Torah reading of Haazinu, listen in, consists of a 70-line song delivered by Moses to the people of Israel on the last day of his earthly life. Calling heaven and earth as witnesses, Moses exhorts the people, remember the days of old, consider the years of... Oh, sorry, it went little. Hang on.
Why did it do that?
I don't know. It's done it again.
It's yours. You can pinch it to make it bigger.
I am. I keep pinching it to make it bigger and it keeps going back smaller. Consider
sorry.
the years of many generations. Ask your father and he will recount it to you. Your elders and they will tell you how God found them in a desert land, made them a people, chose them as his own, and bequeathed them a bountiful land. The song also warns against the pitfalls of plenty. Yeshurun grew fat and kicked. You have grown fat, thick and rotund. He forsook God who made him and spurned the rock of his salvation. And the terrible calamities that would result, which Moses describes as God hiding his face. Yet in the end, he promises, God will revenge the blood of his servants and be reconciled with his people and land. The Parsha concludes with God's instruction to Moses to ascend the summit of Mount Nebo, from which he will behold the promised land before dying on the mountain. For you shall see the land opposite you, but you shall not go there, into the land which I give to the children of Israel.
Okay, thank you very much. My bar mitzvah seder, actually. It's short. It's only 35 verses, but it's very hard to learn because it's quite difficult words. Okay. So
When's
that's
your birthday, Rabbi?
12th of Tishrei.
Okay.
Which
2 days
is?
after Yom Kippur.
Oh, right.
I'll be 45 this year. I was going to make a kiddush, but we might have to put that on hold.
Well, how come this is your Sedra if your birthday's
Good
not
question.
until after Yom Kippur?
Good question. So the answer to that is that most years Haazinu ends up being, I don't know about most years, but a lot of years, when there's a Shabbos between Yom Kippur and Sukkot, Haazinu ends up being that Shabbos because it's the last Sedra we read before Simchas Torah. When there's no Shabbos, so for example, if Yom Tov is, I don't know, what's an example? Monday, Tuesday, and Yom Kippur is when, no, that doesn't work. Yeah, like this year, Yom Tov, Saturday, Sunday, so there's no Shabbos between Yom Kippur and Sukkot, so Haazinu gets read the week before. So this year, Haazinu gets read this week, but more often than not, it's read after Yom Kippur. It just depends on the number of weeks in the year.
Oh.
Right?
My son's on the 10th of Tishrei, and this is his bar mitzvah Sedra as well.
There you go.
Okay.
Mazel tov.
Oh.
Happy
Yeah,
birthday.
He'll be 46, older than you.
Do we know where Mount Nebo is?
I seem to recall seeing this somewhere, but I can't remember. 1 second, let's ask Google. Well, I have a feeling it's in the desert somewhere. One second, obviously. I mean, in the modern desert. Let's see. Where's Mount Nebo? Arkansas. No, that can't be right. It's in Jordan nowadays, apparently.
Oh, that's what I
Would be,
thought
wouldn't it?
was.
Yeah. East Bank makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, if it's
So-
on the other side of the Jordan, now we
Exactly.
don't have very much land on the other side of the Jordan, do we?
No.
No.
So we did
So
in
it's
those
definitely
days.
in Jordan.
We did in those days. Okay. So let's see our next source. This is from the end of the Parsha. This is towards the end of Moshe's life. So who would like to read number 2? I've lost everyone's faces. One second.
Do that if you like, Rabbi.
Please.
That very day the Lord spoke to Moses, go up this mountain of the Abarim, Mount Nebo, which is in the land of Moab, opposite Jericho.
There's your answer. Yes, it's in
There's
East
the
Bank.
answer,
Yeah.
And view the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the people of Israel for a possession, and die on the mountain which you go up, and be gathered to your people, for you will see the land only from a distance. You will not enter the land I am giving to the people of Israel.
And this is the end for Moshe. Now, he's still known as Moshe Rabbeinu, our teacher. He's the greatest prophet we ever had. He's the greatest leader we ever had. The liberator, lawgiver, brought slaves to freedom, brought us together as a nation. He argued with God on our behalf. He performed signs and wonders. He gave us laws. He argued with us when we sinned. He argued for us with God. He basically gave his life to us. We've discussed before that he probably gave up his marriage for his leadership as well. And we as a nation let him down many, many times. So what's the image of Moshe? So if you're mystical, I suppose you have him sort of ascending to heaven at the giving of the Torah. We know the famous story in the Talmud. He even argued with angels. Anyone know that story? There's a famous story. I think we may have learned it together on Shavuos in the Talmud, where there's a halacha called bar mitzvah that basically, if the owner of number 120 Grove Hill is selling off their garden, then according to Jewish law, they should give first refusal to Pam and Julian, because Pam and Julian might be very interested in expanding their own garden, or it's more relevant to a field or something, or some prime real estate. That if it's always often in the interest of the person who has the adjoining property to possibly expand their property. So the halacha is that you give first refusal to your nearest neighbor. Now they may say no, but you're supposed to offer it to them, because it's far more useful to them to expand and have contiguous property than to have some random person come in. So the Talmud tells us that this a meitzah means a boundary or fence, like minha meitzah, from the straits, from the limits I called out to God, right? Mitzrayim is boundaries, we know. So bar mitzvah is the idea that you give first refusal to anyone that's basically a neighbor on who abuts your property around. So the Midrash, I think, tells us, I think the story is brought in the Talmud, that when God wanted to give the Torah, Moshe comes up to heaven, and here he is amongst all these angels, and they say, what is this mere mortal doing here? What is this man of flesh and blood, born of a woman, doing amongst us celestial beings? And God says, I'm giving him the Torah. And the angels say, what are you giving it to him for? Give it to us. We're celestial beings. We will keep it, in the heavenly realms. Why are you giving it to this mere mortal who's going to debase it and bring it down? And Hashem says to Moshe, what's your answer? Answer them. Come on, I want to see you, debate them. And Moshe says, do you have free choice? Do you have the option to do mitzvah? Do you have the choice to eat kosher or treif? No, you don't. So the Torah is not for you, basically. Anyway, the point is he argues with them. So let's see this. Here we go. Who would like to read number 3? Anyone says?
Yeah, I do. I do it.
Mark?
Did we do it? Oh, Mark.
Yeah, I do it. Yeah. Thank you, Pam. Do angels work that they need a day of rest? Do they have parents that they need to be commanded to honor them? Do they have an evil inclination that they need to be told? Do not commit adultery.
So this is Moshe, it's from the Talmud, from Shabbat. There we go. So this is a guy that argues with angels who, I suppose, are theoretically closer to God. Okay, Yisrael, Jacob's name was changed to Yisrael, means he struggled with God and with people. Moshe argues with angels. He argues. He's, anyway, that's one aspect of him. That, here's somebody that, really advocates for us on every level. Here's an interesting one. What had God previously said prior to the golden calf of anyone who committed idolatry? Anyone know?
They would be killed.
They would be destroyed. Right? God himself, correct. God himself said, someone who sacrifices to another God shall be destroyed. So Moshe comes and says, please do not destroy the people. There's a problem. What's the problem? God has already vowed, I have a rule. The rule is that if you commit idolatry, then you need to be destroyed. So God says to Moshe, how can I go back on my word? And it's one of those funny things, you know what? You'll go back on your word. Better you should be known for breaking your word than for destroying your people. But anyway, right, we see how important it is to keep your vows. So this is what happened, according to the Midrash. Pam, would you like to read this one?
Yeah, I'm just moving something out.
So this is what has happened after Moshe challenges God about the people in the golden calf.
I cannot, for I have already vowed. One who sacrifices to any god shall be destroyed. From Exodus. And I cannot revoke my vow. Moses replied, Master of the universe, have you not taught me the laws of annulling vows? One may not annul his own vow, but a sage...
Sorry, 1 second, Pam. Your son is calling out the door. I can't get in. Right. Sorry, we're just losing a child over here. Right.
I thought you meant my son was crawling out the door.
No, I hope not.
Moses thereupon annulled God's vow.
Okay, so this is pretty heavy stuff. Moshe is actually taking on suddenly the paternal role to Hashem, right, of annulling Hashem's vows. I mean, that's pretty big stuff. So why? Because a sage, a rabbi, a Beis Din has the power to annul vows. That's even more so than God himself. That's pretty powerful stuff. So some rabbis say, never mind arguing with the angels, Moshe becomes the posek, the rabbinic decider for God himself. That's pretty astonishing stuff. So he's a pretty good guy. Okay, what else? Let's see. 1 second. Get my papers. I mean, he's many different things, Moshe. He's a lawgiver. He's a governor. He's a prophet. But we see he's the rabbi to God himself. We go to, on Friday morning, if we have time, hopefully, we're going to do the Hataras Nadarim, where we annul our vows. What do? We cobble together a Beis Din of 3 random people, members of the public, and we go before them and we ask them to sit as a Beis Din and to annul our vows. And it's a very powerful idea that 3 ordinary people can actually sit as a Beis Din, that you don't necessarily have to be Dayanim, that ordinary people can sit as a Beis Din. So even Moshe himself can sit as a Beis Din for God. Okay.
So what are you doing on Friday morning then?
So after davening,
Is it on Zoom or what?
we will do it on Zoom. It's a very good question whether you can do it on Zoom, actually. We have to find out. It's a really interesting question whether you have to be there in person or not. There is a custom, besides for Kol Nidre, I suppose ladies don't generally do it, and there's no reason they shouldn't, but it's just one of those things that usually happens in Minyan, after Minyan. So before Rosh Hashanah, you annul your vows. It's called Hataras Nadarim. You can do it up till Yom Kippur. Through this Kol Nidre, you also do that. But basically, you go before a tribunal, as it were, a panel of 3 judges who are lay, I suppose, like magistrates, right? Magistrates are unqualified. So we do the same thing. We take 3 unqualified people, we stick them in the front, and we say, you're going to be our panel to annul our vows. And you go before them, you say, any vow I have made that I haven't carried out, any promise I've made that I've not honored, any pledge I've made that I've not followed through on, I ask you to annul it, that I'm not obligated. By the way, it's not a get out clause. You may have heard people say bli neder, right? People say, I'll see you at 3 o'clock. I'll be there at 3 o'clock. Bli neder. Bli neder means I'm not promising. Now, it's a bit like, you know, all these disclaimers. I don't know, when the kids go like trampolining and stuff now, or they go to outdoor play, like you sort of had something they went to, I don't know, laser tag or something, and they send you a thing you have to do online. It's a 5-page legal waiver that basically you're signing away your entire life and then, you know, you're mortgaging a house to them, whatever. No, but you're basically saying that you waive any future claims. I asked Graham about this once because it seemed a bit far-fetched. Why should, just because I ask you to waive your legal rights, surely that, they basically say to you, if you don't waive your legal rights here, we won't let you come and, you know, play in our play area or whatever, ride our go-karts or whatever. So it seems like it's a bit of a gray area of law, because you can't abrogate something which is, you know, sometimes you get things saying this does not affect your statutory rights. If you have statutory rights, they shouldn't be affected, even if you waive. You can't waive your statutory rights. You know, you can't just abrogate the law because you don't like it. I mean, obviously, it's a much more serious topic, but things like assisted suicide, the fact that somebody might say to you, I don't mind your injecting me with this poison, doesn't make it legal to do it if it's against the law. The fact that somebody says, I waive my right to something, doesn't automatically mean the law no longer applies. You know, it's not as simple as that. So just saying, bli neder, oh, I'm not promising anything, but that's not good enough. You should keep your word. Saying, well, I can't promise, but I'll try. You know, we say that in English. One should keep one's word, but nonetheless, because of the severity of breaking a vow or a pledge, one of the things we do it at Kol Nidre. We ask all our vows to be annulled. It's the same thing we do Erev Rosh Hashanah as well. I often say to the kids, like when they say things like, I'm never doing this again, or like, I'm never going to see him again. So you shouldn't make vows like that. You know, you should be more careful what comes out your mouth, basically. So we have a custom of Hataras Nadarim, which is something we do at some point, usually before Yom Kippur, where we basically ask a tribunal of our peers, so it's peer assessed, to annul our vows. We normally do it after davening. I wonder if it's something we should do on a larger scale. Interesting question.
Rabbi, who sits there?
So we swap over. So you get the first 3 people to sit, and then the next 3 people. So you basically you alternate so that everyone gets a chance to do it. I don't see why.
I thought you meant
shouldn't.
you got people from the streets in.
No, it's not that random. But that'd be like a nice. In Israel, you could probably do that. 1 second, the office is trying to call me. Okay. Right. So Moshe is so powerful, he actually gets to be God's rabbi almost to annul his vow. Okay, let's see what Maimonides has to say about Moshe. Here we go. Why Moshe is pretty sort of amazing. Who would like to read this?
Shall I do it?
Julian. Yep.
First, others received their prophecies in dreams or visions, while Moses received his when awake. Second, to the others God spoke in parables obliquely, but to Moses he spoke directly and lucidly. Third, the other prophets were terrified when God appeared to them, but of Moses it says, thus the Lord used to speak to Moses face to face as a man speaks to his friend. Fourth, other prophets needed to undergo lengthy preparations to hear the divine word. Moses spoke to God whenever he wanted or needed to. He was always prepared like one of the ministering angels.
Okay, so I can't comment. Sorry?
Or a Boy Scout.
Yeah.
Prepared.
Yeah, so I can't comment about prophecy because I'm not a prophet, but it seems that by standards of prophecy, Moshe had special qualities, right? Others would have dreams or visions. He had them while he was lucid and awake. Others, God would speak in parables, right? Like the Valley of the Dry Bones, Ezekiel, things like that. With Moshe, it was direct and to the point. Others would be fearful. Moshe used to speak to him like a mate, basically. Right? Others would have to prepare to hear the divine word. Moshe was basically constantly tuned into that channel. Sounds pretty superhuman. No? So
Yes.
is it?
Yes.
So was he superhuman?
Yeah.
No.
No, right?
Oh.
How did we start? We started with the reading that here's the land that you're not going to enter, right? We know he was a person that had human failings and human emotions. We've read about how he says, I'd rather die than have to continue to look after these people, right? We've read a few places where he's spoken of his despair. Right? He might have been somebody that God spoke to directly, which is pretty amazing and awesome, but that doesn't make him any less human, right? You have, you know, other religions and particularly sort of art and culture often, I think it was ancient Egypt when the pharaohs died, they became gods, right? I think it was Egypt. Was it Egypt? Or
Yeah.
kings in ancient cultures, kings became gods after their death, you know, very convenient for the whole kind of thing. And you know, that's not how it works in Judaism. The greatest of our leaders are human beings. They may be exemplary human beings. They may be tzaddikim. If they're particularly holy, they can do things like stand for hours and not have to sleep, or, you know, sometimes deal with health problems and things like that in slightly supernatural kind of ways, but they are still human beings. Mashiach is a human being. Moshe Rabbeinu is a human being. Our leaders, our kings, our sages, our high priests, they may do amazing things and they may sometimes perform miracles, and they may, you know, the high priest did all kinds of spiritual stuff at Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. At the end of the day, he was a human being. One of the things he had to do was immerse in a mikveh to cleanse himself. Angels don't do that. So we don't turn anyone into a God figure, God forbid. We don't see our sages as saints or angels. Yeah. Yeah,
yes,
Mark?
but after all what, yes, well, after all what Moshe done,
Right.
isn't it a bit harsh? He's not allowed. Isn't it a bit harsh? He's not allowed to go into the land of Israel.
There is that, definitely. Yes, we've talked about that before.
Have we? Oh,
Yeah, part of it's the Dominic Cummings factor, that if you're at the top, you can't afford to make mistakes, because a mistake by a leader is magnified. Right? So, you know,
yes.
if you're going to have, you know, think about it. It's true. If you look at the lockdown, people said that the time when did people stop taking it seriously? When they saw that people in government were not taking it seriously. If the leaders are not taking it seriously, that has can't think of the word.
A con effect.
Yeah, what's it called? Where it's exponential effect on the guy, you know, the man in the street says, why should I take this seriously? Our leaders don't take it seriously. You know, President Trump keeps appearing without a mask in places. So people are saying, you know, well, you know, the president doesn't have to do it. I don't have to do it. That's human nature. So whilst Moshe striking the rock might seem small on the, you know, cosmic scale, it has far-reaching implications. Now, obviously, everything is Bashet. Everything is God's will. So at the end of the day, it's all part of the divine plan. And, you know, if it wasn't going to happen that way, it would have happened some other way. You know, you can't totally beat yourself. You know, if God decreed that Moshe wasn't going to make it into the promised land, so the striking the rock was just a vehicle for that.
Rabbi,
yeah.
Talking about leaders not wearing a mask, on Saturday night at the Slichot, everybody, the people were, you were all singing with no masks on.
We were all at least 3 meters apart, and you're allowed to do it outdoors.
Okay, thank you.
Current guidance. Though you raise an interesting point that it could be we should still have worn them for the sake of optics, but no, outdoors is generally far less of an issue according to current guidance. It doesn't do any harm to wear a mask. It's very hard to sing though. But no, everybody was distanced, and that's why it was outdoors basically, not indoors.
But the singers, were indoors, weren't you?
No, we were outdoors. We're in the courtyard.
Oh, was that not obvious? Like a room.
No. Behind where the screen is, there's a kind of awning where there are kind of 2 wings to the school, and there's an awning in between. So
does that not make it an enclosed space?
No, because it's basically open. In fact, I don't even think it had a roof where we were. It was just
you were in a hole.
No, we were outside. Right. Okay. Thank you for that. I should have clarified that. I didn't realize it wasn't obvious. No, we were outside. That's why everyone had coats and scarves on.
I looked at it and I thought it really looks. Looks like an indoor area.
Thank you for that. When it gets released on US TV, please God, I will ask them to put in the captions. Please note this took place outdoors with social distancing. I didn't realize that. No, it was outdoors. That's why everyone had coats and scarves on. That's why we did it outdoors, because there's less issues. No, 100%. You're right. Though actually, they've changed the guidelines that choir of up to 6 are allowed to sing 3 meters apart without masks, which to me sounds a bit daft. But anyway, I guess for some shuls, particularly, or churches, choirs are like, so crucial. Right. So Next.
But Moses,
Uh,
Rabbi,
Beryl. Yeah.
Moses had the merit to be in God's presence and everything else, which we haven't got. We haven't got anything like that.
Right.
So
excuse me. Sorry.
he
Yeah.
may have missed out on worldly things, but he got what we'll never have.
Well, I think we may have spoken before about the dilemma. I can't remember what the answer we came up with was. That the problem, when you make an example of someone, it could go both ways. Let's say you're in the army and they decide to make an example of someone who's not following discipline. I don't know, they shoot them or I don't know, whatever, they discipline them. Now, on the one hand, you might say you make an example. The other side to it is you'll say that people will just despair. They'll think, if even Moses couldn't hack it, what hope is there for the rest of us? If even he couldn't meet God's standards, then what's the point of my trying? So it could cut both ways, I suppose.
God wanted him
There's
for
a few facets to this, and one facet is that the handover to Yehoshua took place in his lifetime. We read this in last week's Ezra, that before the eyes of Israel, he handed over to Joshua. That's a very important point. So the succession was clear to everyone that this was the guy that had the approval of Moshe.
And Hashem told him to appoint him.
Yeah, but how would the people have seen that?
No, I'm not saying it. No,
if Joshua comes along and says, I'm the new guy, I've been appointed leader by God, and by the way, you have this, I don't know anything about the details of this. The Sadigora Rebbe passed away. I think he was based in London. He had a bunch of sons. There seems to be some politics going on, as often happens. So now 5 of them have become Rebbes in different places because they can't agree which one takes over. That's what happens when you don't have a clear succession or you have a business. So,
but what I'm saying, Hashem told Moshe to appoint him in front of the people, didn't he?
Right, yes, no, Hashem told him to do it. But the point is that, fine. But the way it was done was very deliberate, so that even though Moshe's dying, there's not going to be a vacuum because the people have already seen in Moshe's lifetime that he's passed the baton on to Joshua. That's really important. As opposed to Moshe dies and his prize student says, I'll be the new leader. And people say, who gave you the authority? Right, a lot of the problems that occur with succession is because they're not designated in the lifetime of the previous leader. So it's all very nice someone saying, I'm the designated successor. There's a separate debate whether you should designate your own successor or not, but let's put that aside. Somebody says, I'm the designated successor. And they say, how do you know? Well, you get things like there's more than one will. That's not uncommon. Someone finds another will somewhere, all kinds of issues. You solve all that by the person in their lifetime. I don't know if the Queen will do it. Maybe the Queen will do it. People are saying, they might skip Charles and move on to William. Charles's whole life has been groomed to be king. I would feel very bad for him if he didn't get to do it. But he's 70-something already.
She can't do that. She can't do that. No. It has to go to the heir apparent.
What if he abdicates straight away?
That's different.
So, okay, I don't know exactly how it would happen, but the point is, let's say that was for whatever reason. Let's say, I don't know, Charles wasn't in good health and Corona continues and over 70s basically have to isolate. And they say, you know what, let's designate William as, I don't know, something to take on the role, let's say. It could well happen. The Queen is isolating at the moment. So clearly, it would be far more effective if the Queen made a statement with Prince Philip and Prince Charles and Prince William, Duke of Cambridge, all standing there in the background, nodding their heads. Then if let's say, I don't know, the Queen died and William says, oh, Grandma said I was going to be the new king. It doesn't work. You have to do it in your lifetime. So Moshe appoints Joshua in his lifetime. Very important that. Anyway, but Moshe's a human being. We see his human side. And interestingly, you may have heard this before. Before we come to that, let's look at the next quote from Pirkei Avot, right? If there's ever an example of this, it's definitely Moshe, right here. Who would like to read that? Beryl, nice one for you there.
Oh, it's a small one. It is not for you to complete the task, but neither are you free to stand aside from it.
All right, they don't do all the youth group songs anymore, but when I was in JSOC, they used to sing Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor, Lo alecha ligmor. It's not for you to complete the task, but neither you are free to stand aside from it. And the interesting thing is, after that, it says that you should rebuild the temple, which is much more religious. But this is often sung in secular youth groups. So we know it says basically, it's the story of the guy with the carob tree that's planting for the future generations. Moshe also. Moshe didn't complete his task, but he did a jolly good job nonetheless. So if you ever want to talk about someone who didn't see their life's work fulfilled, the fruits of their labor, you only have to look at Moshe Rabbeinu. And
Rabbi,
Yeah.
isn't that sentence what we say in the funeral service?
I think so. Sounds right. I think it occurs somewhere there. Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. The day is short and the laborers are the workers are
Right.
slug. Yes, you're quite right. Yes. We say the whole Mishnah. Yes. The day is short. The master is demanding. The laborers are sluggish. It's not for you to complete the task, but neither is it for you to refrain from it. Yes, you're quite right. Yes. Because that's what we say at the end of a person's life, right? You can only do your best.
Yeah.
You don't always see the completion of your life. Again, this is why succession is important. You sometimes have people do a sterling job, but because the succession goes wrong, or there's no succession planning, that their work is undermined, which is very sad. So we've kind of got both. We've got Moshe, the superhuman being, quote unquote, that goes to heaven and argues with the angels and advocates and challenges God on the point of Jewish law and talks to God face to face, however you do that. On the other hand, we've got Moshe, who doesn't really complete his life's work, who doesn't enter the land, and who is a human being. But nonetheless, as you can imagine, people must have been. It's funny because you would think nowadays, if you had, if the chief rabbi, God would talk to him regularly, and he would, the mountains would smoke in the background and things like that, you would think people would probably respect him quite a lot. And yet the people rebelled plenty of times against Moshe, even though he clearly had Hashem on his side. Anyone know where Moshe is buried? We know where everyone else is buried.
We don't know, do we?
No.
So that it
Why-
because God didn't
why do
want it to become a place of pilgrimage.
Right, and how do we manage to achieve the fact that no one knows his burial place? Who buried him?
God himself.
It says Hashem himself.
Really?
Right, and anyone remember why?
Did God
give
take him up into heaven?
No. We have a principle.
It wouldn't become like a shrine, so he wouldn't
Yes.
be seen as a
So
superhuman.
that's the classic explanation given, that people would go to his burial place and they turn it into a shrine, perhaps beyond what should be. The reason that God himself buried Moshe is that we have a principle of what we call midah keneged midah, that Hashem rewards a person with the same thing that they themselves dish out. So who was the one when they were leaving Egypt that went and got Joseph's coffin out of the river and basically did it right? So who looked after Joseph? The highest person at the top of the chain. So when Moshe died, who looks after him? The highest being at the top of the chain. Now there's only one person higher than Moshe, and that's God. So it's midah keneged midah. God says, you know what? You put yourself out as that you were at the top of the hierarchy and the top of the totem pole, and you put yourself out for Joseph. I'll do the same for you. But also conveniently means no one knows where it is. Let's read. Who hasn't read yet? Anyone?
I haven't read yet.
Right, please read that. There we go.
He buried him in the valley in the land of Moab, near Bethpor, and no one knows his burial place to this day.
Okay. It shouldn't become. There's nothing wrong with going to graves as places of pilgrimage, but perhaps because of Moshe's greatness, there's a particular concern that people would, perhaps overdo it. I'll give you an example. Anyone heard of Uman?
Yeah.
In Ukraine, right? So Rabbi Nachman of Breslov is buried in Uman. They always kind of make jokes about people that leave their family for Rosh Hashanah, men, and they go to Uman basically, and their wives stay home with the kids in Israel. So this year, of course, you've got coronavirus. I know there's a rabbi, one of the Chabad rabbis there, has unfortunately got really bad coronavirus, and they've airlifted him to Israel. So they're saying don't go there, basically. The medical care is appalling, and having 20,000 pilgrims is a really bad idea. But I'm rather afraid that people will go. And there's always tensions with local population who don't have a history of particularly pro-Jewish activity, although they get a lot of business from the tourists. So I hope it's not going to get ugly over there. But that might be an example of where a place of pilgrimage gets overrated. At the end of the day, don't risk your life to go spend Rosh Hashanah by someone's grave. It doesn't make any sense. So we don't know where Moshe's burial place is. Okay.
Rabbi,
yes.
On Shabbat afternoon, I was talking to Sally, and she probably asked you this herself, but she was wondering, how long after this was written or this was all talked about did Moshe die? And I wonder, had the Jewish people already gone by then, the rest of them, or was he?
I thought it says that it was the last day of his life. Does that sound right? That he wrote the Torah? Yeah, because he says I'm 120 years old this day.
So then it was before the rest of the Jewish people left to go to Israel.
Yeah, there's a whole discussion about how he wrote of his own death. One version is, I think Yoshua wrote it or Hashem wrote it, and the other is that he wrote it through tears. Because obviously you can't write your own obituary usually. I don't know the exact chronology, but last week's Sedra took place on his date of death. Yeah, because he says I'm 120 years old today. Let's see what Maimonides has to say. Laws of repentance. Maimonides says every human being can be as righteous as Moshe or as wicked as Yerovam. We spoke about Yerovam at Silichus. He was a very wicked king who got himself in a lot of trouble and caused a lot of problems. Right? So Maimonides says anyone can be as righteous as Moshe. Now let's just be clear. If Moshe was, obviously not, but if Moshe was somehow the Godhead or the Son of God, as certain religions believe, then not everyone can be the Son of God, obviously. No one can, but anyway, or we all can, but you know what I mean? If you believe that stuff. So at the end of the day, as righteous as Moshe was, says the Rambam, we can all be as righteous as him, or we can all be as wicked as Yerovam. So even the greatest sage, the greatest leader, the greatest prophet, Moshe Rabbeinu, is another human being. You know, let's just be clear about that. A human being with humble beginnings. He wasn't born into royalty. He was raised in a palace. But let's just be clear about that. He's a human being, first and foremost. So Moshe Rabbeinu, can we all be like Moshe? Look, I don't know. Can we all go lead cranky, cantankerous people through the desert? Possibly not. But the point is we can aspire to it. It's not beyond our reach, his qualities, because he's a human being, right? And we also make mistakes just like he did. Here's Martin Luther King. Thanks to Rabbi Sachs. Let's see what Martin Luther King has to say. This was on the 3rd of April, 1968. He gave a sermon. I don't often quote church sermons, but I'll do it this time. He gave a sermon in a church in Memphis. And this is really strange. And I'm sure it's God's, divine providence as well. He talked about the last day of Moshe's life. And he said that was how Martin Luther King, felt that he wasn't getting into the promised land as far as the civil rights movement. I don't know exactly what was going on sort of politically at that time, but that night, was the last night of his life. He didn't know this, but the next day he was assassinated. So it's pretty freaky, as you would say. So let's see what Martin Luther King says. I'll read Martin Luther King. Excuse me, it's not going to be the right accent. I just want to do God's will. He's allowed me to go up to the mountain, and I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So it's very interesting. Who does this Christian invoke when he's sort of talking about he must have had some premonition about the end of his life. That's all I can say to that. But even if he didn't realize it himself. But who does he invoke? He doesn't invoke Yoshka. He invokes Moshe, greatest leader of the people.
The next day.
So why wasn't Moshe allowed to enter the promised land? This is what the Talmud says. Very simple answer. Anyone want to read that? It's 5 words. Mark?
Each generation has its leaders.
Source number 10. So in other words, each generation has its leaders. Moshe was the leader that took us out of slavery. He's not necessarily the same leader that takes us into the promised land. You may recall, I think Rabbi Abel spoke a few years ago about the striking of the rock. And how Moshe had struck the rock 40 years earlier. And, you can't blame him for doing the same thing again. And he said the answer is that what worked 40 years ago doesn't work today. And that even within your own lifetime, you have to adjust and adapt. And therefore, there's a really important lesson in that no, you do have to adapt. And, you might not, sometimes, you have it with an organization. Someone founds an organization and it starts very small and then, it gets much bigger and someone else takes over at the next stage of its life. And, different people might have different strengths. So each generation has its leaders. So as great as Moshe was, he couldn't go on forever. And maybe the one who took us out of Egypt is not the one to bring us into promised land. It doesn't have to be that much more complicated than that. They have different needs and different skills. Here's Kafka, thanks to Rabbi Sachs. Who wants to read Kafka? Iris, would you like to read Kafka? Oh, Jeff?
Yes.
He is on the track of Canaan all his life. It is incredible that he should see the land only when on the verge of death. This dying vision of it can only be intended to illustrate how complete a moment is human life. Complete because life like this could not last forever and still be nothing but a moment. Moses fails to enter Canaan, not because his life was too short, but because it is a human life.
Okay, right, there you go. There's another answer. He's human. Most humans don't live to see all of their dreams. At some point, it's the end of your life. 120 years is a good innings. Okay, let's have a look at the end of Moshe's life quickly. This is from last week. Iris, would you like to read?
The man Moses was 120 years old when he died, yet his eyes were undimmed and his strength unabated.
Right, what does that tell you?
Yeah.
He had a jolly good innings.
Right, more than that, he was working. Some people like my mother used to say the secretary at their faculty in Oxford used to say, once you basically leave a place, you leave in your head. In other words, you might still be working, but you mentally you're not there because you're already thinking about the new job. So, or when you're retiring, you don't just. Some people who are really, really dedicated will, up to the very last day, they'll be working incredibly hard. On their last day, they won't skive off work or whatever. Other people, if you're retiring in a month's time, you kind of take it easy. They can't fire you. You're retiring anyway. That kind of thing, right? Or you start to step back from things because you're getting older. No evidence of that with Moshe, right? He was leading the people till his very last day. We do have others. Yitzchak, we know, became old and blind and so on, right? It's other people, it says they got old and they started to lose their faculties, but Moshe, he was going till his last day. Old man of 120, his strength continued, his eyes hadn't dimmed. And what does it mean his eyes hadn't dimmed? It means that he had the same vision of his youth. He hadn't lost sight, quite literally. Right? We spoke about this before, how we use the metaphors of sight and hearing. He hadn't lost sight of his goals. He was just as passionate at the end of his life. Now, what else can we say about him? So he's a human being, but a very great one. And that doesn't detract from him at all. It would detract from him more to ascribe some kind of godlike features to him, because at the end of the day, he's just a human being, but he's a very great human being. And we see his human side. And throughout the Torah, generally, we see people's human sides, right? The Torah doesn't whitewash people's emotions, people's concerns. When Moshe says to God, I'm not worthy to lead the people, you could say that being that he eventually became the leader, it would have been better not to put that in the Torah at all. When people come for, you get a phone call, do you know, I don't know, whatever, Joe Bloggs, he's the son of Fred Bloggs, he's been suggested a shidduch for my daughter, and you say, oh yeah, he's a bit dodgy, I wouldn't go near him with a barge pole. And then they end up getting married, and somehow this guy gets to hear about what you said about him. It's kind of quite awkward, really. Sometimes it's better not to hear that. But no, the Torah tells us, right? The Torah tells us about all the fights and all the broiguses and all the family tensions and all the mistakes that people made. It doesn't airbrush it at all. But that actually for us should be more inspiring, because the message to us is that these are great people who are as human as we are, and that we can aspire to be like them, because it's not beyond our reach. Moshe is not some superhuman person. He was a human being. He was a human being that made mistakes, but nonetheless, he was a very special person, and we can also be like that. So actually, that humanity makes it more attainable for us. Right? Any questions?
No.
We'll hopefully have a share next week. It is the fast of Gedalia, but we'll hopefully have a share next week. That's the plan.
But not the week after.
Not the week after, no, definitely not. No, afraid not.
And what about after that during Sukkot?
Let's play it by ear. It'd be nice if we can.
Okay.
We'll try.
You might want a break.
Yeah, I'm fine for now. Yeah, we'll try. We'll try to do it.
Rabbi, can I just can I look at one of the slides again? I think it was number 3.
Yeah, 1 second.
I've just found a way to take photos of them. When I was listening to Michael yesterday,
Oh, yes.
I found a way I can take a screenshot on my
Yes, you just do print
phone.
screen. Oh, on your
Yeah.
phone. Yeah, you can do screenshot. Yeah, 1 second. Why is it not appearing? I did. Oh, what's going on? There you go. Have you got that?
Inside.
Which one do you want?
I think it was
3.
number 3.
Number 3.
So the pick comes in.
That one?
Can I send them to Sally?
I mean, I could just share the thing if it's easier, but yeah,
okay.
you can.
It was just that
Yeah,
she
you-
was interested in
Sure.
this, and she probably
Sure.
just couldn't.
Sure. So do
Yeah.
you want to? So do you want to screenshot them? So tell me when you've done it. Here's number 1.
Hang on a minute.
Hang on,
Wait a minute.
it's not the same as it was before.
No,
No,
we
I was
just
going to go through all of them.
No, we
I
just
don't
got a
need them all
static
because I've
screen.
taken some of them already.
Oh.
Wait a minute.
Oh, okay. So sorry. Which ones do you want? There's number 3 you asked for.
I can't see it there.
Oh, is it not coming up?
No,
No.
Oh
No.
gosh. Maybe we've
I
got
don't-
a frozen.
Yeah, we've just got the opening thing on the right, and then the
Same word.
Oh, that's
Okay, it's
annoying.
gone now.
Let me try sharing again. 1 second. Let me try sharing again.
Which way? Is it the same?
Is that
word?
any better?
yes, that's it.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
Is that
Tell me
what
when
you
you've
want?
done that.
Yeah.
Pamela, can you ask Rabbi Wallenberg about Michael's shearing?
You can ask. He can hear you.
Yeah, I'm here. Hello.
Hello. I'd like to retrieve Michael's shearing, the 2 of them. I haven't heard them.
Okay. Yeah, the plan is to put them online today or tomorrow, all being well. I just have to convert them.
Where
It
will,
takes a
you
minute.
where will you put it?
It'll be on the website, WFUS. You'll see it. I'll share it on the Shaw Facebook group, so you'll see it.
Everybody.
Okay.
I don't think I'm on that.
I think you are.
Oh, am I?
You posted on it the other day.
Oh, yeah, I'm all, yes, because I used to watch this shear.
Yeah.
After you did
Yeah.
it. Oh,
Okay.
thank you.
I'll do that.
Thank you
Okay,
very much.
Pam, whichever other ones do you want?
I think it was number 4 actually.
Here's number 4. Okay.
Who-
Can you see that without the pictures? Oops. Oh, number 4. Here you go.
Number 5.
That's
Number 4.
5. That's it.
4.
No, I've got. I haven't got that yet.
Wait a
It's
minute.
funny, I haven't got. That's it. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Do you need any others?
I think that's fine. Thank you. Oh, it's really clever.
Yeah. Okay, should I stop that then? Okay.
Yeah,
If you need
thank
any more, let me know. I'll send them to you. But I've got to go off to one of these briefings with the chief rabbi to find out what we're doing about blowing shofars and stuff. So
Yeah.
please
You're gonna let us
excuse me.
know- You're going to let us know about the shawl.
Yeah, so we're going to look at all the bookings today and you'll get an email in the next 24, 48 hours confirming your bookings, hopefully. It's a massive, massive undertaking, so just bear with me.
Must be.
Absolutely.
We're going to see Lynn tomorrow morning, hopefully go through it, but it's, I don't think we're overbooked. We've just got to tweak a few things.
Right.
So,
I thought we'd already received the confirmation.
no, you've received
No.
something saying that your seat is not guaranteed until you get an email about it, because it depends if you're oversubscribed. But if you, in theory, you should be fine.
Oh,
You will
okay.
find out in the next 24, 48 hours. If
Lovely.
you know anyone who thinks they've booked and hasn't, we've got a problem. So if someone says to you, oh, I didn't book, but I told so-and-so I was coming, please tell them to call the office urgently.
Okay.
One of my friends, she doesn't belong to the shawl, but she's been.
No, I know about Doreen. Yeah, we've got Doreen's. Yeah, we're working with that.
Oh,
Hopefully that shouldn't be a
lovely.
problem. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
And Warren.
Warren doesn't seem to have booked, so you might want to, will you think of calling him?
I can if you like.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe, yeah.
All right.
Just to check.
Yeah.
I mean, at
Okay.
some point, it might be that somebody has to go through and call the people who said they were coming and haven't booked, but that's a big undertaking. Don't know if anyone's going to have time to do that, honestly. We'll take it one step at a time. I'm going to try to update Jeff this afternoon on numbers so we can figure out the call-ups, basically.
I phoned the Angels yesterday just to see how they were,
Yeah.
and they feel a little bit upset that nobody else has rung them from the shawl. So if somebody could take a minute.
They should.
I ring them. I'm due to ring them this week.
I know, but they're on your list, aren't they?
Oh yeah, yeah.
She doesn't count that as somebody separate from being on the list.
Right. Well, I'll give them a call before Yontif. I'm trying to give everyone a
Lovely,
call.
lovely, thank you.
But I think we have to get across to people that even though you're calling people on your list, it should mean something. I mean, I don't quite know how to put that into words. You know, I've had that before. I went to see someone. They said, no one's called me from the shore. I said, but Sally came round to see you. And, oh, well, they're not from the shore. Well, they are.
Yeah, I know
They
what
work
you
for
mean.
community. They
Yeah.
work for community cares as well. You know,
Yeah.
would you want someone to come in with a sort of banner saying community cares? It's a little bit difficult. And obviously when people are vulnerable, I don't want to upset anyone, but it's really hard because you get that quite a lot. People don't quite separate between someone in their personal capacity. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, to me, if Pam's calling them, that's really lovely, even though she's doing it as part of her list, you know. But anyway, I'll give them a call. see how
Rabbi,
they're doing it.
what they really
Yeah.
mean is that you haven't phoned them.
Yeah,
That's
probably
what
that's
they,
great.
as you told them.
Not always, because
No.
I get it as well. I call people and they say no one else has called me from the shore. But at the end of the day, if you're an active person who's stuck at home, it's really difficult. So the main thing is that we should do our best to help.
Rabbi, does somebody ring you?
No one rings me. No, that's not true. No, that's not true. Actually, no. One person who's really good, I have to say, and fits with his role is Andrew Markovich, because we know he's our Jamie person. He will always say to me at least once a month, "How are you doing? You know, are you overworking? You know, you can always talk to me," which is really good. I'm not saying others don't. Right, I'm off to hear the chief rabbi.
Okay.
So please
thank
excuse
you.
me. For those who are
Have a
not
good
seeing,
week.
have a lovely Shana Tova, have a lovely Yom Tov. Mark,
Yes.
I'll speak to you about Duchening in the next few days, okay?
Okay, fine. Is the chief rabbi going to do a special prayer for the virus, so that
We'll say
there
some
is-
extra psalms. We'll say some extra psalms. Is there
Yeah.
one?
There is one. It's on the website that you put on. It's from Boreham Wood Shul. They had
Okay.
it on.
Okay.
I can find it, I think.
Yeah, I think the rabbi wants to go.
I
Yeah.
gotta go.
All right.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Please
okay.
excuse me.
Have a good
All right.
week.
Bye, everyone.